minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, and liftoff.
That's right. We're back. Merry Christmas, you filthy animals. We are back and we are ready to rock. You Get the Horn Show. Tad and Jeff here. Excited, brother, to do this. The real deal. We did a special last week for all about the NFL draft, and we had a great time doing that. But it's good to get back to our normal, regularly scheduled programming.
That's it. Get back to our roots. Get back to what made us.
That's right. What draws people to us is not our NFL draft coverage. But we also want to welcome a lot of our viewers from YouTube, because now we are starting to put our full episodes on YouTube as well as the podcast. And so we know there'll be a lot of people both watching and listening. And so welcome all of you. The Army grows, man. Every single day we got more and more people coming on board, and most of them are very supportive of what we do and really enjoying the show. Every once in a while we get a couple people that strongly feel that we're wrong, but and we're going to address some of those people tonight.
Can't wait.
I don't like to speak in like too modern parlance very often, but we got receipts tonight on some things that we are going to be talking to some folks that have questioned us about some things in the past, and
that's right.
I think
we are gonna clap back, if you will.
That's right. So get ready. The clap back is coming. You've had the clap. Now you're about to get clapped back.
Yeah, that's worse.
That's right. Much worse. All right. So listen, man, we got a lot to cover tonight. We probably, if it's anything like usual, we won't even manage to get through all of it. But for anyone who's new to the show, this show, look, it's called You Get the Horns. We give it to you straight. Our opinions. We don't pull any punches. We don't really care too much about what you think about it. We're going to give our opinions on things. We're reasonable people. We're right the vast majority of the time in anything that we say. This is, we're going to have a lot of things to give our opinions on tonight, and it'll be pretty interesting stuff. So first thing is just going to be a couple that got caught smuggling a very specific candy into another country. Never had any idea that this would be a thing. So it's going to be an interesting story. You're going to want to hear it. Also, Tucker Carlson. A lot of people out there interested in Tucker Carlson, recently fired from Fox News, and we have some information that he is about to start striking back. Also, Bud Light, our old frenemy, our frenemy Bud Light, giving us a lot of content, and certainly at the same time have probably made us a few enemies along the way as we've weighed in on this controversy around Bud Light. And we got some information here on the Bud Light controversy that I think will certainly be worth talking about. So looking forward to diving into that as well. And then after the Bud Light stuff, man, we got a bunch of really interesting things. The first one is just, we judge attraction on people in different ways. And some of it is just by body parts. And so we're going to talk a little bit about certain body parts that are just difficult to find attractive, no matter what. We've also got some things. Look, I did not know Richard Dreyfuss recently. We're going to talk about this actor, Richard Dreyfuss, speaking out about these new Oscar diversity rules. I didn't even know there were these new rules about things that movies have to do to even be able to qualify for Academy Awards now. And it's all around, forced diversity and stuff. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. We've got a few different NFL stories to be able to talk about as well. And just a whole bunch of different stuff. Of course, we're going to discuss the Kentucky Derby, and what happened with that. And then also, in the event you want to survive a plane crash, God forbid you're going to be in one. If you've got to be on a plane, you don't want to be on one that's going to crash. But if it is going to crash, if you're on it and God forbid the worst happens, good to know which seat to be in. So we're going to be able to let you know as a public service the safest seats to be in on an airplane if it's going to crash. So, and a whole bunch of other stuff. We got tons and tons of stuff to be able to talk about. So Let's just jump into a brother at the top of the board here. I saw this article. I just think we had to talk about this. TikTok and the impact and power, I guess, of TikTok has just gotten to this point of being completely insane. Apparently, a couple here in America was arrested and caught trying to smuggle 375 pounds of fruit roll-ups into Israel. Apparently there was some viral TikTok thing. I never saw this, but some viral TikTok thing where you like wrap fruit roll-ups. I don't know if it's around an ice cream cone or you just try to make an ice cream cone out of fruit roll-ups or something. You like wrap it around and then you eat ice cream with it. And Israel has gone nuts for fruit roll-ups. And apparently they're like not that easy to get in Israel. So people have been making a killing, and the price of fruit roll-ups has been skyrocketing. So it's all because of a viral video. They actually got caught in the airport near Tel Aviv. They were there with 375 pounds of fruit roll-ups. And they had a massive suitcase filled with it. In America, fruit roll-ups cost about 50 cents at a dollar store, but they can go for up to $6 in Israel. And it's all because of a TikTok video showing fans how to freeze a fruit roll-up and wrap it around just ice cream as a makeshift cone. So you unroll the fruit roll-ups, you freeze them, you, I guess, scoop ice cream, you unroll it, you put a scoop of ice cream on it, then you roll it around, and it's like now your ice cream cone. How this is a thing that could literally make it so that you can't get fruit roll-ups in the country of Israel, I don't understand exactly how that's possible. I mean, so weird.
Why would this be the thing that makes, fruit roll-ups so needed? And oh my gosh, would you say Israel or Egypt?
Israel. Yeah. In fact, last week alone, Israeli customs officials confiscated at least 661 pounds of fruit roll-ups just last week. And Mitchell Cohen, the owner of the historic Economy Candy Shop in the East Village in New York, told the New York Post that a customer recently placed an order for 10,000 boxes of fruit roll-ups. And when this guy tries to order them from his distributors, they told him, we haven't even seen fruit roll-ups in months. Can't get them.
You can't get them, man.
Can't get them. Can't get fruit roll-ups, man. So ever since, it was all TikTok. And it's just like, it's so insane. Like, how in the world, some stupid TikTok trend about putting ice cream in a fruit roll-up. Now you can't get fruit roll-ups, and they're selling for 10 times as much as they should be.
Do you eat them then? Like, once you put
presumably
like an ice cream cone?
I think
but
you have
at that point,
right?
They're just going to be melted, and then they're just going to be fruit roll-ups again by the time.
I guess maybe that's the point, is that it's a delicious cone for your ice cream.
But I mean, they're just who would eat a fruit flavored cone? In ice cream, it just doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't.
That is terrible. Have you had a fruit roll-up? Like, I even as a kid, I didn't like fruit roll-ups.
No, I never. I mean, I'm sure in my life I must have had a fruit roll-up. I have no memory of ever having had a fruit roll-up.
No, I mean, they would just they're sticky and like they would get stuck in your teeth. Like, even as a kid, I didn't like them. I just, that's too funny. I'm reading that you actually have an 11-pound food limit at the Tel Aviv airport. So you couldn't bring 11 pounds of, how much is 11 pounds of fruit roll-ups?
Considering each fruit roll-up weighs like about a feather, they have no weight to them. It's a little teeny tiny thin layer of pressed fruit. It has no weight. It's like a sheet of notebook paper.
Yeah, and I'm positive it's not real fruit. So it's just some processed stuff. But yeah, and how much do tickets cost to go to to Tel Aviv. I don't know, like that it would be
7,000
worth it.
fruit roll-ups worth, apparently.
Yeah, like this is Kramer and Newman trying to figure out how to take recycling bottles
That's
to
right.
Michigan because they're worth 10 cents.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was just such a strange story. And like, because that's a thing, like I really kind of I don't even know how much I knew that fruit roll-ups were even still a thing that existed. And not only do they exist, they're so popular, you can't even get them. No.
So $6 per individually wrap, like not a box of them, like just
No.
one that's out of the box.
That's right. Because they say here in the US, you go to a dollar store, you can buy a fruit roll-up for about 50 cents. And
you can buy I see. That's something new.
Well, maybe they would come out to be 50 cents. Like if you bought a box, it would average out to be 50 cents.
Know that I've ever seen just a single fruit roll-up. Not that I'm looking for them.
Right.
But
yeah,
wow.
it's like more than 10 times as much. And someone else said that the price over the last 2 months has increased by 50% of fruit roll-ups.
Man, God,
who thought you'd be looking for black market fruit roll-ups? Yeah. Like who would have ever thought that would be a thing? Like you're meeting a guy in a parking lot, like, you know, popping the trunk of his car. Again, we'll do another Seinfeld thing, right? Yeah, like Kramer trying to sell the good shower heads when they put in the low flow shower heads.
Like, oh, you don't want this one. My buddy wants it. He wants it.
That's right. But that's like exactly what this is like. You're going to meet a guy in a parking lot who's going to pop the hood of his old Cadillac, and inside he's got boxes of fruit roll-ups, and, you know, and he's making a killing on it. So
that is insane. How is it that we are like, we've never been in a society more and more connected, but yet somehow we get like dumber by the moment. And it's not just, apparently it's not just the United States anymore. It's now Israel.
No, that's right. It's everywhere. The stupidity is spreading. I mean, it's gone everywhere. It's like a virus.
It is a virus for sure. Just the dumbest thing. I mean, to me, that like fruit roll up and ice cream sounds absolutely disgusting. I mean,
unless you were getting a fruit ice cream, maybe like if you're having strawberry ice cream, you know, maybe something like that would be okay. Vanilla, I guess, could work, but like chocolate, I don't think I would want a chocolate ice cream and fruit roll up cone.
But it's not. But it's like a fruit roll up is not even like it's not like this tastes exactly like strawberry. It tastes like a processed strawberry, right? So it gives off a flavor of strawberry, but it doesn't taste anywhere near like what a strawberry would taste like. Right. Wow. Idiots.
Yeah. And so I don't know, like it doesn't say here what the penalty will be for these folks who got busted.
Arrested. Like,
yeah, exactly. I don't think they're going to do prison time or anything.
Listen, are we going to have to exchange a?
We need to bring in a WNBA player.
Right. So now we're going to have to exchange like a terrorist for these two. For roll-up smugglers.
Right. We're going to bring in the merchant of death and we're going to give him away to the people who smuggling fruit roll-ups.
Oh man.
Yeah, you don't want to have to be in the clink in prison there and hey, what are you in for? Did you see that TikTok video about fruit roll-ups? I was deep in it, man. Like caught me smuggling all kinds of fruit roll-ups in here.
I was deep in the ups, man. I was deep in the ups.
Yeah. So just a completely bizarre story. Clearly some enterprising people. I mean, it just goes to show people make money in so many different ways.
Yeah, I was trying to think in my head.
Smuggling fruit roll-ups into Israel is definitely one of the ones you would not have thought of.
Did they have a buyer or were they just taking them there? Like, I wonder... Like, were they just taking them there to try and peddle them? I would hope they had a buyer at least.
I hope. I mean, you've already spent that money on 375 pounds of fruit roll-ups. I mean, you'd really hate to get there and find out nobody wanted it.
I wish I knew
I got to take it home with me.
I mean, how many fruit roll-ups is that? I wonder. Man, I would love to try to figure that out.
They have a picture that I saw, in the article of a very large roller bag suitcase filled with fruit roll-ups. And they're not boxes, they're individually wrapped fruit roll-ups that are just all over the place. So yeah, incredibly weird.
Funny. God,
yeah,
idiots. Imagine though, they probably made some good money. They would have made some good money had they gotten away with it.
Yeah,
I just don't know how they thought they were going to get away with it.
Yeah, I mean, if you can 10x your money, right? I mean, it's like if you bought $1,000 worth of fruit roll-ups and you can turn around and sell them for $10,000, not bad.
Yeah, I mean,
not
give
bad
or take,
at all.
you know, the plane ticket over there. I mean, maybe they're from there and we're heading there anyways. Like, well,
right,
we're going
maybe
anyways.
Family there.
Might as well bring some fruit roll-ups with us.
That's right.
Holy cow! All right.
Yeah, it's like if you were when you were a kid and you knew someone who lived, like if you couldn't get fireworks in the state you lived in, but you knew someone that, you know, that when they were coming through, it was always like, hey, make sure you pick up some fireworks for me. Now it's fruit roll-ups. It's like, hey man, if you're going to be around them fruit roll-ups, make sure you load up. I'll send you some money. I'll Venmo you my roll-up money, but I need supply.
Maybe I'll see if I can buy some boxes and send them over.
Yeah,
that'd be worth my time. $6 a roll-up.
Well worth it. Well worth it.
Yeah, just like everything, I'll buy at the top, and nobody will want them anymore.
That's right. The fruit roll-up market's a house of cards. You know, you don't know. It's going to fall. You don't know when it's going to fall, but it's going to fall. I mean, it was like during the pandemic, they couldn't make masks, right, fast enough.
Sure.
There was too much demand. People going, this is the same thing. They can't keep up with the fruit roll-up demand now. And the thing that I thought was very interesting in this article that I read about it is, and I don't understand, like this was said as like a, you know, kind of a simple, this is from a quote from the owner of one of these candy shops who was saying you can't get fruit roll-ups. And he said, you can't just turn on the fruit roll-up machine and crank any more out. Why not?
Why can't you?
I mean, why wouldn't you do that? That's exactly what you do. There is such a thing as a fruit roll-up machine. I don't think it's there's not people in there just rolling them out by hand. We can't fit more people in the warehouse.
They're working.
They all have carpal tunnel.
They got to work 90 hours a week, you know, peeing in bottles.
There's like a guy in the corner just stepping on strawberries.
Yeah, I mean, sleeping, you know, sleeping shift.
This is the once in a generation demand for fruit roll-ups, guys. We're printing money right now. But I thought it was very strange. Like, you can't just turn on the machine and make more. It's like fruit roll-ups do not occur in nature. This isn't a thing where it's like
naturally occurring fruit roll-ups.
Yeah, it's like you can't just make more of these. Yeah, that's 1,000,000% what you can do.
Exactly what.
There's a company that makes them. That's how they exist. They don't grow on trees. Yeah. I don't know.
Family can come by for 5 minutes and see them. Handshakes only. We don't have time for hugs.
No hugs. Yeah, pat you down on the way out to make sure you're not stealing any of the fruit roll-ups. It's like whiskey guys trying to steal Pappy Van Winkle. It's like trying to smuggle out fruit roll-ups.
What is this? It fell in my pocket.
Bring in the fruit roll-up dogs. We need to check these people.
It's just a bunch of really fat dogs.
Yeah, so it was just an incredibly weird story. There's not any anything to learn from that story. There's
no zero. And we've spent 20 minutes
you're just an enterprising person and you want to try to find a way to do it. But yeah, otherwise we spent time talking about fruit roll-ups.
Just use an ice cream cone, you know, what they're actually made for.
Yeah, quit being so lazy, people. All right, so now we'll get off fruit roll-ups and get into something a little more serious, I suppose. We aren't not really a political show here, but we aren't afraid to wade into politics. I mean, this is you get the horns, right? We give it to you straight. It doesn't matter what the topic is. There's nothing that we won't talk about. We don't back down from any topic. And so, Tucker Carlson is in the news quite a bit. He got fired by Fox News recently. And it happened, and really, you didn't hear a thing from Tucker Carlson after he got fired from Fox News. He's been laying low, but clearly some things have been going on behind the scenes and stuff like that. And from what I've read and heard, now it's looking like Tucker Carlson is getting ready to start attacking Fox News. And there's a few different reasons for this. Apparently, Fox News is paying Tucker Carlson $20 million a year to not work, just to sideline him, because they know wherever else he goes, he's going to take a lot of viewers with him. You know, I mean, regardless of, you know, whoever's listening or watching this, regardless of your political beliefs, Tucker Carlson is a very popular person, and he has a lot of people that would follow him. And most of those people are squarely in the Fox News demographic, and Fox News would rather pay Tucker Carlson $20 million a year to not work than to go somewhere else and take a lot of their viewers with them. And so now he wants to get out of that, of course. And they're trying to do it. His contract, Tucker Carlson's contract, expires in January of 2025, which is after the next presidential election. And so he, of course, wants to get out of that contract. Not to mention, he could probably, I think he's already had offers that would pay him as much or more than what Fox would be paying him to not work. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with it.
Rumble, Newsmax, all those guys have to be just big, and you know they would love to take any of the Fox News shares.
Absolutely.
I mean, not as many shares to take at this point because Fox is absolutely bleeding viewers, man. They are down. So he averaged about 3 million viewers per night, which is insane, really. I mean, you think about it. And they're down to like a little over 1.5 million now in that same time slot. So yeah, it's got to be killing them. And then they're basically at this point, I guess, paying him to stay home and do nothing. I know he's been pretty active on Twitter, I believe.
I believe so. Yeah.
I don't really follow the guy. I mean, I couldn't tell you the last time I saw a Tucker Carlson show.
Right.
Last time would have been never. I've never watched an entire show of Tucker Carlson. Yeah. I've seen like some clips and stuff, and I mean, he knows how to reach an audience. That is for sure.
Yeah.
You know, he's good at that. I mean, he knows kind of how to play on things. Have we ever really gotten the full story as to why, like, they fired him? I know, like, I've seen some stuff about him going on, like, kind of believing, I don't know if any was true. You know, it's like 9/11 really wasn't what everyone made it out to be. And
well, I think the reason he got fired was the lawsuit about Dominion voting systems.
Okay. Yeah.
And stuff that he said, it looks like it may actually cost Fox News. Now, again, we're not a political show, so somebody's going to like blast us because I got some of these details wrong or something like that. But supposedly Fox News might have to pay out like $780 million in penalties for if they lose that lawsuit and blah, blah, blah. And so they fired him, making him somewhat of a sacrificial lamb, even though he's also the one that said a lot of the stuff. And so, but then again, okay, you're going to do that. You're going to also pay him $20 million a year for the next several years,
right?
To not work. I mean, it's just, it seems kind of crazy, but that's kind of where they are. So he has not come out and spoken about it very much yet. There's certainly a lot of belief that that's setting up. He wants his freedom. His team is ready to start hitting back. And look, the reality is they can probably make it pretty miserable for Fox News if they want to. And even in this article, it says that, you know, Tucker Carlson knows where the bodies are buried at Fox News, and he's ready to start drawing a map. Like he's ready to start taking things down. So it'll be interesting to see, you know, how it plays out. I mean, you know, you fire the guy, you knew what you were getting, right? I mean, and so when he's saying the stuff and the ratings are great and everything else, you know, you back him up, and then you fire him when things go bad, and then you got to expect that he's gonna push back a little bit on this, and you know, hard to think he wouldn't.
So I'm looking. It says according to the Guardian. No idea if they're reputable or not, but it's also supposedly connected to a lawsuit filed by his former senior booking producer, Abby Grossberg, who claimed she faced sexism and hostile work environment. And they're also claiming that the network and Carlson had mutually agreed to separate. So who knows where the truth lies? Somewhere probably in the middle, I'm guessing. But
always does, right?
I mean, they had to know that their ratings were going to hurt and hurt bad. I mean, there are people that would follow probably Tucker Carlson to CNN, and the people that watch Fox probably aren't watching CNN, and I'm guessing vice versa. But I bet there are people that would follow Carlson to there. Someone was saying him and Don Lemon. Remember, you saw Don Lemon had gotten fired. Right. That they should do a show together. I was like, man, I might actually turn in for an episode or two or something like that, and then immediately get bored and flipped off.
Right. Well, I know supposedly Tucker Carlson had some conversations with Elon Musk about potentially doing something. So there's been a few things talked about, and there's even been some talk about Tucker Carlson doing like a straight to consumer thing where customers can pay X number of dollars a month just to watch his content. And honestly, I mean, that's really where the future is, right? I mean, it just, nothing else makes sense. I mean, Tucker Carlson could just have a YouTube channel and have a separate subscription fee. You don't even have to be on TV. You don't need TV anymore.
No,
you're able to do so much.
You don't need radio either necessarily.
No.
One of the radio guys that I used to like to listen to was a guy named Chad Dukes. Got fired. Some speculation about what that firing was. I don't think we've ever heard it. I've heard rumors, and I'm not going to go into them. But I still follow him on Instagram. He's still done pretty well for himself, and that's what he's done. Yeah. He's done pretty much his own show, and it's streamed online. He gives so many free episodes on like podcasts on whatever, Spotify or what have you. Yeah, and the rest is subscription based. He doesn't look like he's hurting very much. So I mean, it's
probably a simpler life. You make what you want to make the way you want to make it. I mean, that's what we do with this show, right? We make the exact show we want to make. Yeah. We don't answer to anybody. And, and if you're somebody like a Tucker Carlson or a Bill O'Reilly or, some of these personalities, and people are going to follow you over there, why not create content specifically for your audience, right? You have to entertain your own audience, but versus being on someone's network and having to try to win, new audience people and grow market share and do all of this stuff, you can just talk to your own people. And, and we make this show for our people, right? The people that subscribe, the people that follow us, we make a show for those people, and people respond to that. We're nowhere near on the level of Tucker Carlson at this point. But, when you think about a guy like him, he knows what his people want. He knows what his fans and his followers want to hear and how to be able to deliver that messaging to them.
That's it.
He won't have any problems. 20 million a year, as great as that sounds, is definitely undercutting Tucker Carlson's value in the market. And,
for sure. Now, listen, if Fox wants to pay us $20 million a year, I can be
wide
bought.
Open. Yeah.
I can be bought.
Yes.
I'll talk about whatever you want me to talk about.
100%.
Yeah. You can program my own show.
That's right. You tell me. I don't even need to know ahead of time what I'll be saying.
No.
Just put a little teleprompter up in front of me, and I'm just ready to go. But so it'll be interesting to see what Tucker Carlson does, right? I mean, that's he's a big name out there, and it doesn't matter what people feel. Like you can like him, you can not like him. That's not relevant to whether or not he's popular.
No, and exactly.
How you feel about him does not mean that he doesn't have a massive audience and people that would want to support him as well. So, could be interesting.
Yeah.
And moving beyond that, we're gonna draw a little more blood from this stone. We've talked multiple times about this Bud Light controversy and Anheuser-Busch partnering with Dylan Mulvaney, a transgender influencer, and now apparently maybe not actually transgender. We've had lots and lots of people correct us, comments on YouTube and different things that Dylan Mulvaney's not actually transgender, more of a drag queen. He's not actually transitioning to a woman or anything. He just dresses up like a woman for parody.
But he Oh no, well, I've always thought he does it for parody, but I mean, he has a whole series of day in a life of being a woman. You know, at one point it was
Right.
365 days of being a woman,
Right.
not being a drag queen.
Again, I don't claim to know. I'm just saying what our people have told us, and there's been some dispute. I won't claim to know enough to know, but I will say this. There was an article that came out that a different transgender actor who appeared in a Bud Light commercial prior to all of this does not believe in the allyship of Anheuser-Busch. That's a direct quote. And the person said, I didn't believe in the allyship from the get-go. And so I'll kind of jump in just a little bit, give you the background on this because it's kind of interesting. Transgender actor and comedian named Ian Harvey. He appeared in a 2016 Bud Light commercial that stated the company supported, quote, people of all genders. This guy admitted in an interview that his partnership with Anheuser-Busch never seemed genuine and was only about money. He said, I don't believe in the allyship of Anheuser-Busch. It's not about diversity. It's about dollars. They looked at her socials and just said, you know what? Here's a topic that's hot right now. Why don't we pay this person to do a promotion? Talking about Dylan Mulvaney. And so I guess, you know, for us, we talked about this at length on our show, and we've been very even-handed throughout this process. We have never been anti-Dylan Mulvaney going through this whatsoever.
Opposite, actually, saying good for him, her.
Yeah. Yeah, whatever. Good for them.
Yeah, good for them.
You're getting paid.
You're getting paid, yeah.
Yeah. So we have been very even-handed. If anything, we've been critical of Anheuser-Busch and Bud Light just for pretending that this is something more than it was. Exactly. And how they handle it and everything else, and just the bigger picture of politics being involved in every single product you buy and all of this stuff. And I will say this. We took a beating from some people. We had a ton of people that were very supportive of us, but we took a beating from some people who said we were bigots, who said that we were, you know, phobic of transgender people and all of this stuff. So let me be clear. Shut up. You're wrong. Clearly wrong. We said that this was not about Bud Light or Anheuser-Busch truly caring about transgender people, wanting to lift someone up. They found someone with millions and millions of viewers, and they're buying in to talk about their life story. That's what we said, because that's the only logical way to look at it. And when we said it, we had so many people say, you're bigots, you're spewing hate and all of this stuff. Not at all. Not at all. And now here is another transgender actor who has been paid by Bud Light who's saying the exact same thing. So this is not about us, and it's not about bigotry. The person themselves agree with us.
Again,
very annoying to me.
Again, you get the horn show. And as I've said before, we're going to tell it like it is, but you're going to find two of the most down the middle people ever. We're going to tell you exactly what it is. It's not one way or the other. We're not skewing ourselves. We see it as we see it, and that's how we saw it. This was nothing at all to do about Anheuser-Busch supporting the movement. They don't care at all. They thought they would just get their brand out there, and it completely backfired. Completely backfired in a way, Ted, that Sidetrack Bar, which is a very popular bar in Chicago for LGBTQ people, they own several bars in Chicago. They're no longer selling Bud or Goose Island because they say now, Anheuser-Busch, if you're not going to support us, we're not going to sell your beer. And this is what we said. Don't get involved in something that you don't need to get involved in.
That's right.
You're a beer. You're a cheaply made beer. You didn't need to get involved in this. And now you have both sides are saying, we're not drinking your beer.
Yeah. Yeah. Now everybody's turned off by it.
I mean,
well, and this actor, this transgender actor that was in it before, I thought these quotes were so interesting because he said, hey, it was about the dollars for me too, honestly. I'm a working comic actor. I was thrilled to be in the presence. I guess he did this commercial with Amy Schumer. He said he got a nice paycheck from it. But he said, I'm 30 years sober. I don't even drink. I just did the commercial to get paid, and they wanted me in the commercial to get, whatever, get paid or get ratings or whatever. And he said, and I thought it was very interesting. He said, kind of, I guess, as proof of this as well, he said, it's disturbing that Anheuser-Busch and Bud Light have given no statement of support whatsoever for Dylan Mulvaney. If they really cared, they should have doubled down. They should have said, you think it's offensive to have a trans person promoting Bud Light? Well, here's 10 more. But that's not what they're doing. If anything, they've just kind of distanced themselves from it and taken a step back, and it's hurt them. I mean, as many people as we've had come on, and say, oh, it hasn't hurt them. Their stock price has. It's not all about stock price. Since Bud Light's partnership with Dylan Mulvaney, in-store sales of Bud Light have dropped 26% in the week that ended April 22nd. So this was, 2 weeks ago? Anheuser-Busch also saw its market value decrease by $5 billion in recent weeks. Now, will people come back to it? Yeah, we said this. We believe that that's the case. They'll come back to it. It's not really going to stay this way forever. But it doesn't mean that people weren't heard. It doesn't mean that there wasn't an impact from all of this.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, and now they've the VP of marketing, she stepped down.
Yeah,
and then
people are losing jobs.
I've heard that they fired the I don't know if it was the marketing team or the people that come up with the commercials. The outside ad agency. Right. And trying to spin it of like, we never approved this and this and this. Come on, man. If you didn't approve it, then you just let people go rogue in your company. Right. It doesn't say much for your company at that point or your leadership ability if you just let stuff get through like that. I guess you saw the Red Sox fan show the. I mean,
nobody at the concessions.
Not a single person in the Bud Light lines. And he said that was all around the stadium. Like, it wasn't just at this one spot. He's claiming it was all over. Now, for me, like, I might be like, well, if I'm going to get a cheap beer anyways, do I just like...
Right. Exactly. Just run up and grab something here.
Grab one here because I don't have to wait in line. Yeah. Oh, it's too much. And now you've got both sides that are like, all right, fine. I'm not going to sell it either. If you're not going to come out. And that's what the bar in Chicago was saying. Well, if you're not going to come out and support Dylan, then we're not going to support you. Yeah. And exactly what you said. If you're not coming out and doubling down and this is the waters that you just didn't need to wade into. So
you can't have 1 foot in and 1 foot out, right? If you support this, then actually support it. If you don't, then just don't get involved. But that's the problem is people nowadays, most consumers, not all, but most consumers, many consumers are more savvy than they ever were. And so they can kind of tell when something's inauthentic. And that's, I think, where people start to read that and you go, no, I don't, this doesn't feel right. And this hasn't felt right from the beginning. It didn't fit with Bud Light's demographic for sure. And so then you say, oh, well, that's okay because they want to try a new demographic. Okay, so now their existing fans hate them, but then they aren't truly standing in a position of strong belief in this thing that they decided to wade into because they seem to want to back off from it. Just like we read the CEO's statement that was laughable. It wasn't an apology, and I don't know that it was couched as an apology, but just a statement about the controversy where he just tried to claim that they were loved by sports fans and first responders and the military and everything else. Is just so pandering stuff, the same old stuff.
Fabric that holds the country together.
Yes. Yeah. So it's so stupid. But again, just a message to these people that have tried to claim that we throughout this process were bigoted or showing hate or anything like that. Absolutely not. You're dead wrong. That has never been the case. And now, even more, even other actors, transgender people are speaking out saying this has nothing to do with Bud Light wanting to be an ally to the transgender community. It's business, and that's okay. It's business, and it should be fine that it's business. Just like Dylan took the money and we said, good for Dylan. You got paid to allow them to participate in your life story. Nothing wrong with that, but don't make it something that it isn't. And that's what Bud Light's tried to do. I don't think Dylan's tried to do that. Dylan's like, hey, man, I'm taking a paycheck. Like that. Why wouldn't I do that? Can't knock Dylan for that. Bud Light, though, is trying to pretend that it's something else. And I think that's where they've gotten in trouble.
Exactly it.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, you look at and now it's almost like it's become poisonous. You go to a ball game, who wants to be seen carrying a Bud Light can? Because now that in and of itself has become a political statement, right? So like we've said, like, don't wade into politics. If you're a brand, and I don't just mean politics as in, pure politics. I mean social issues, political correctness, all of these, just stay out of those things. Nobody's telling you what to support. It's not, don't support that thing, support this thing instead. We're saying it shouldn't happen. It doesn't matter what the topic is, what the belief is. That's not what you want from brands. And again, even going all the way back, man, and we know this from back in the day, Michael Jordan fans, people wanted him to get political. And he said, Republicans and Democrats both buy shoes, right? So like, why am I going to speak out and isolate 50% of the potential, customers for this brand? It would never make sense to do that. And, and now you really, if you were just walking around drinking a Bud Light and somebody saw that, now that has somehow become a political statement. Even though you could just say, like you said, I just didn't want to wait in line. And I don't care at all about what kind of beer I drink. I'll just drink whatever. If you're someone that's like that, you're now making a political statement in some way if you're seen with a Bud Light. It's crazy. Yeah.
I mean, if I drank Bud Light, I'd still drink it. I don't think I would ever.
Right.
Like, if I really liked it, like, I'm just not going to wade in those waters. I don't care. If it was a good beer, then, like, I'm still going to drink it. I'm like, all right. I don't care. I don't care what they do as long as they keep making good beer.
Yeah. Of course, that's not the situation here because they don't make good beer. Not at all
the situation. So
not a great example. But if they did, hypothetically, if they made good beer, then that would be relevant. Yeah. I wouldn't sacrifice to make that statement, but there's no sacrifice to give up Bud Light.
No, it doesn't seem that difficult.
I mean, there's Coors. There's Coors. There's Miller Lite. There's other stuff. There's just water. There's any number of different things you could have.
Sure. Exactly.
All right, so moving on, I'm going to kind of go through, not necessarily rapid fire stuff here, but just some interesting topics that we found. And tonight we're just going to kind of play this a little fast and loose. Normally we're somewhat structured, go through the rundown. We have our quick hits. We have, all of the, sometimes we have the stampede. We have all these different segments. This won't really be a quick hits segment tonight. But that's of course our beloved sound effect for quick hits, far more beloved than our sound effect for the stampede. but we do have some things tonight, and we'll kind of go through it. Look, man, this is one. This is an awkward one to even talk about. I just saw it. I thought this is the weirdest story that I maybe will ever report on this show. And of course, it's from our friends over at New Scientist. Somehow we talked about them maybe a month ago. We had some great article from New Scientist, and we kind of joked at the time about who knows how many articles we're going to have from New Scientist. Well, here's another one.
You know what that was? That was the medication getting into the water, making the crawfish. They're making the crawfish.
Yeah, the crawfish were getting very bold because of antidepressants being in the water. Yeah, yes. Well, this is not quite that way. And in fact, actually, this is going to talk about something that you would never want around crawfish. So according to New Scientist, a new study finds that it is, quote, barely possible to identify a beautiful scrotum. So I saw this and I just thought, I mean, that's your headline. If you tune out of the show right now, you know what you need to know from this. You got everything you need from it. But apparently,
so you saw this headline and you're like, Let me keep reading. Let me see what's in here.
I was like, oh, wait a minute. I need to do a deep dive on this.
Hold on a sec. Okay.
So they did a study, and it was done in Germany with plastic surgeons, and it was called The Scrotum, a comparison of men's and women's aesthetic assessments. And it begins by citing a 27-year-old psychology paper called Gender and Attractiveness Biases in Hiring Decisions. Are more experienced managers less biased? And then it started to move into a very different direction. And they went through, they had a series of hypotheses.
I mean, this is like going down like YouTube videos, huh? Like you start watching puppies and you end up watching satanic sacrifices. How did I get here?
Yeah. Wait a minute. What happened? The algorithm's all messed up now. So, but they say that they stated several hypotheses and remarks about one of them. Our sixth hypothesis suggested that men would rate their scrotum significantly more positively than women would rate their vulva. However, we were unable to identify any significant difference in ratings by gender. And it presents 4 tables, the last of which bears the label Descriptive Statistics for evaluation of each scrotum and each variation by gender in order of perceived attractiveness of the scrotums.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, they came to the conclusion that ultimately it was barely possible to identify a, quote, beautiful scrotum, and we must instead speak of the least ugly.
How did they go from biases to hiring managers
I know.
to taking...
Like, what
36
kind of employment?
To taking 36 close-up black and white photographs of scrotums.
Yeah, like if you were participating in the study, you had to really wonder where things went off the rails.
What is happening here?
I just wanted to see what it was going to be like for me to hire people to work at my grocery store. Why am I needing to look at all these pictures?
Yeah. Well, why are you taking a picture of my scrotum? It's for science.
Yeah, don't worry about it. Don't ask
Cool.
questions. It's science.
It's science. Okay. It's for science.
Can't say no.
This is the weirdest story.
Very
I don't
strange.
even know if I understand it. I have no idea
understand
how we got from who's the best hiring as their biases in hiring to, the scrotums really aren't that good looking. Right. No,
Yeah.
I don't.
There's no such thing as a good looking one. It's just which is the least ugly. Yeah.
Oh, that is too much.
This is the kind of hard-hitting journalism that you're going to find on this show. We went right from Tucker Carlson to Bud Light to scrotum studies. And we're going to keep on moving. We're not done yet.
No.
We should stop, but we're not, we're not done yet. We should just hang up our spurs right now, but we're not going to stop.
Oh.
So moving on, I saw this article and I thought it was very, very interesting. Jaws star Richard Dreyfuss, which also, it's kind of like, come on, man. Richard Dreyfuss has been in a lot of movies. He's got to get bothered by the fact that, like, he did Jaws 40 years ago or something like that. And he's still Jaws star Richard Dreyfuss. Like, he's not What About Bob star Richard Dreyfuss or, any of these other things. Like, no, it's still Jaws. That's the only way he's known. But I thought it was very interesting. So at first I was like, it was Hollywood's new diversity rules are making, Richard Dreyfuss sick. And I was like, what are they talking about here? Legendary actor Richard Dreyfuss condemned the inclusivity changes that will be implemented for next year's Oscars, saying the new standards, quote, make me vomit. So I thought, okay, what the heck? I mean, inclusivity rules. Yeah, I was like, makes me vomit. They're like, okay, are they like that? If you didn't read anything else, you would think, oh, okay, Richard Dreyfuss is against inclusiveness, right? Inclusivity. He does not want diversity in movies. Like, this is what you would think. And he said, this is an art form. It's also a form of commerce, and it makes money. but it's an art. And no one should be telling me as an artist that I have to give into the latest, most current idea of what morality is. So I was like, okay, I'm going to keep reading this. And he said, what are we risking? Are we really risking hurting people's feelings? You can't legislate that. And you have to let life be life. And I'm sorry, I don't think that there is a minority or a majority in this country that has to be catered to like that. So I was like, okay, very interesting. And I, for the record, I don't necessarily totally disagree with what I had read at that point. And I had no idea that starting in 2024, a film has to meet certain diversity and inclusion standards in 4 different categories that were set out by the Academy of Motion Pictures, Arts and Sciences to even be considered for Best Picture at the Oscars. So it's not just a matter of the movies come out, they're great movies, they're incredibly well made,
Sure.
and then they can be nominated for Best Picture. Not anymore. Doesn't matter how good the movie is. Now they have very specific things that you have to be graded on, these 4 categories. The categories each pertain to a different aspect of the movie's production, and they would require new diversity measures to be met through on-screen representation, creative leadership and project team, industry access and opportunities, and audience advancement. And so on-screen representation is classified as at least one lead character from an underrepresented racial or ethnic group having at least 30% of secondary roles be from 2 underrepresented groups, or the main storyline has to focus on an underrepresented group. So think about this. You're making a film, and now you have to calculate percentages on whether or not this could ever be considered. So you have to say, okay, well, if in this one category alone, we have to have at least one lead character from an underrepresented group. We have to have at least 30% of secondary roles be from 2 underrepresented groups, or the main storyline has to focus on an underrepresented group. I mean, like it's bringing mathematics into art. And
Wow.
It just seemed crazy. And I mean, it struck me as surprising. I had not heard about this.
No.
And so Richard Dreyfuss comes out and he was very opposed to this. Now, I will say this. At this point, it seems like things went a little off the rails as far as what Richard Dreyfuss was saying. Okay. My feelings kind of stop where I just said, like, this stuff seems a little overboard to me when it's art and you're saying, yeah, but you have to do this, have this number, this percentage has to meet this and do this. Then Dreyfuss went on to say, and keeping in mind, he's an Academy Award winner.
Sure.
He mentioned the fact that Laurence Olivier was in Othello, and he said that Olivier did it in 1965. And he did it in blackface. And he played a black man brilliantly, Dreyfuss said. Am I being told I will never have a chance to play a black man? Is someone else being told that if they're not Jewish, they shouldn't play The Merchant of Venice? Are we crazy? Do we not know what art or that art is art? This is so patronizing. It's so thoughtless and treating people like children. Now, again, I agree with most of that quote. Most of it. Should Richard Dreyfuss play a black guy? I don't know. So times have changed a little bit. I don't know. But I do agree with him that it is a little bit of a slippery slope, right? So it's sort of like, because he does make this other mention of, you know, should you have to be Jewish to play The Merchant of Venice? I'll be the first to say, I've not seen The Merchant or read The Merchant of Venice. I didn't know that was centered specifically around a Jewish person. I hear Venice, I'm just assuming Italian dude. But that is tricky, right? Because one should just be as important as the other. And I think even though maybe he misses the mark a little bit on how he's delivering this, I get his point in terms of, well, where exactly is the true equality in this, right? So like, how far down the rabbit hole do you want to go about making sure that each little thing is perfect? So if you were playing a real person who was 100% Asian, but you were only half Asian, should you be allowed to play that role? Right. And it starts to get into a very difficult area to legislate, I think.
Oh yeah. It's, I just wonder if, I mean, this doesn't mean that movies aren't going to be made. It just means that they can't be up for an Academy Award. So, or directors, writers, or are they even going to care anymore?
Yeah.
I mean,
that's interesting.
Yeah. Nobody watches the Academy Awards anyways anymore because it has just become a political, love fest, and it's a little ridiculous. But I mean, so, you so if you have, an Italian mob movie,
mm-hmm.
you can't be considered for it unless you have, a female playing the head, even though, like, I don't.
Or you have to find 30% of people underrepresented. And again, how would that happen?
I don't know.
How is it going to happen that it's a mob movie, but 30% of people have to be minorities? Well, okay, in the mafia, they were pretty specific about what it took to be able to get in and who wasn't going to be allowed in. And like, I just feel like that's where the slippery slope is, right? It's art. If you're a director and you create a film, it is the film that you ideated. You created this in your mind, and then you shot it to be the way you wanted it to be. And so then the idea that people would say, it might be good, but it's not good to win an award for because your version of the way this isn't inclusive enough. And again, in what way, right? So like if it was an all black movie, is that cool? Even though no one else is represented? If it's an all Asian movie, like, are you telling me Crazy Rich Asians, that movie can't come out now unless 30% of the people are black or white or what? Like, I don't understand how that can work.
Right. Or
Tyler Perry's going to go out of business.
Yeah, he's done for. he's done for.
So that's the stuff I don't understand.
But if you're let's just say you're a gay actor and you're playing the lead straight boss guy, can you play that then? Because
right, great point.
You're not straight in real life.
Yeah.
Can't someone just come up with new awards? Like does the Oscars have a just a stranglehold on this? Like nobody else is allowed to come up with anything?
I mean, I guess you got the People's Choice Awards and some of these other things, Golden Globes and
Golden Globes and stuff like that. But I mean, like, all right, just make a more prestigious award. Like, just stop giving in to these people. Like, okay, Oscars, great. You can just go by the wayside. We don't care. If I'm an actor, if I'm a director, like, I'm going to make the movie I want to make. If I don't get nominated for it, okay. Yeah. It's just, this is odd. Yeah. So it's just, but no, I don't think Richard Dreyfuss should play a black man ever in his life.
Mainly for no other reason. I just don't think I could be convinced. I don't think he could sell me on the idea that like I don't think that Richard Dreyfuss. What was the movie with Will Smith when he was like a homeless dude? Pursuit of Happiness.
Pursuit of Happiness.
The Pursuit of Happiness. It would be a very different movie if it was Richard Dreyfuss in blackface in the Will Smith role. Can you imagine Training Day with Richard Dreyfuss in blackface in the Denzel Washington role at the end of the movie, screaming at all the gangsters in the neighborhood?
King Kong ain't got
Shoe program.
24-hour
lockdown. It's Richard Dreyfuss yelling it.
Yeah. Oh, that's too funny. Yeah. I don't, but I mean, honestly, has there ever been anyone do blackface that you were like, yeah, you could pass for a black man. I'm presuming that even a Laurence Olivier didn't really pass for a black man. Like, maybe he played the role, right?
In my opinion, the best to ever do it is probably Robert Downey Jr. in Tropic Thunder.
Knew you were going to go there.
I mean, if you didn't know, I don't think it would have jumped out to you. Like, I think Robert Downey Jr. played a black dude as well as it could be played in blackface parody in a film. Which is, again, that's still a lot of steps down from like authentic reality. But
I mean, gosh, there's a movie that could never be made ever again.
And yet, here's the we don't have to go too far down this topic, but man, you bring up a great point. Tropic Thunder could not be made today. But if you watch Tropic Thunder today, it's hilarious. People today who watch it think it's hilarious. So then it makes you wonder, why? Why can't it be made today? Right? Like people say the same thing about The Office, right? Where it's like, oh, you couldn't make that show today. But yet people love it. It's still, it's as popular or more popular than it was when it was on.
I don't think anyone has the stones to do it these days. I think that's probably just what it is that you just don't have the stones to do it. Nobody wants to take the backlash. Nobody wants to, be considered bigots and phobes and everything else. Brandon Jackson, who played Alpha Cheetah,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he went like toe to toe with Robert Downey Jr. in that movie. It was freaking hilarious.
Yes.
I mean, calling him out.
Yeah, there was a black dude in the movie. He was not offended by Robert Downey Jr. It's like, why can't it just be that it's funny? And again, we're not out here trying to push for more blackface films, right? Like that's not the idea.
No, just don't do that.
That doesn't need to happen.
No.
But the point is that this idea, the bigger idea of the things that kind of like quote unquote couldn't be made nowadays, you hear that all the time. But why? Because of like 2% of the population?
Of course, yes. But
nobody thinks Tropic Thunder was offensive. Nobody thinks Tropic Thunder was offensive.
No,
I mean, let me say,
stupid,
no sane person thinks that. Someone who's looking to have their feelings hurt or be offended. There's a lot of times where I think somehow the lines have gotten blurred between being offended by something and recognizing something that could be offensive to someone somewhere. And I think we have a lot of people in this world that find it their job to police for something that could possibly be offensive to someone somewhere, even if it's not offensive to them. And then they put this on Twitter and they try to make a whole big thing about it and a bunch of virtue signaling and everything else. That's great, but you aren't even offended by it. You just think someone might be offended by it, and it's just crazy to me.
I've often said that, like, I am never going to be offended for another person. Like, come on. People have their own, if you're offended, fine. But I'm not going to be offended for you. I just, too much. Yeah,
it's very crazy. And then, the last thing, too, is for some reason, like, we talk about, races and stuff like this as like authenticity. We both have our head shaved. So should only bald people be allowed to play bald people in films?
They better. They better. I will be offended.
Yeah. That's deeply offensive to me. If Matt Damon wears a bald cap, I'm offended by that because he's not bald.
No.
Right? Be authentic. Like hire us.
That's right.
Yeah. Matt Damon, you're out. we gotta be more authentic.
Yeah, these guys are legitimately bald. Yeah. Sorry. Well, we don't make the rules.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they're not nearly as good as you. They don't have any perceivable skill or talent in this particular area, but their hair doesn't grow and yours does. So
that's right.
That's it. That's all it takes.
Sorry. Again, we don't make the rules.
That's right. Someone out there does, and we just follow them blindly. Yeah. So anyway, I don't know. A bigger topic to be discussed there for a different day. But again, on this show, we don't care. We'll talk about race. We'll talk about, gender issues. We'll talk about any of that stuff, man. And we'll have conversations about it. Like, this is the thing. I've had it happen a few times recently where somebody's, come at us, on one of our YouTube clips in the comments or something like that, trying to blast us about something. Like, no problem. But let's have a conversation about it. Don't just come and say, you guys are idiots. And when somebody says that, I just go, okay, explain. Like, explain. Okay, what makes us idiots? And 99% of the time, there's no response to it. No one, no, they won't even come back. But it's like, look, the way we handle this is we're totally good with an open dialogue. Man, I had a really good. We had a thing last week on our draft NFL draft recap show, which was really cool and a lot of fun. And one of the things we were talking about on there was Warren Moon, NFL quarterback Warren Moon being an undrafted free agent and one of the greats and everything else. And someone, I'm not gonna say who, it's still there in the comments because we allow all comments. Like we don't screen anything, nothing. And we made that decision. You and I made that decision from the very beginning, very early on. Like every comment's allowed, even if it's hurtful to us. It doesn't matter. Like we allow it.
They really like to go after our looks a lot. Yeah,
I didn't anticipate that.
God,
did not anticipate.
It stings a little.
Did not anticipate so many comments about our appearance.
I've got a family, man. Come on.
I'm just out here trying to survive, man. I'm in the same world you're in. But I had this person, comment on the Warren Moon stuff, and they said, something about the NFL being racist. And like, don't try to tell me the NFL draft isn't racist, that type of thing. And I said, okay, well, I'm not telling you that, but I'm curious, like where that's coming from. Like maybe that was the case to a degree at some point, but don't think that's the case now. And then that person came back and said, well, it was only Warren Moon and Randall Cunningham that were even allowed to play quarterback in the NFL in the 80s and 90s type of deal. I don't want to misquote them, but I'm paraphrasing, something like that. But they said, like, correct me if I'm wrong. So I did. And I said, like, hey, look, don't take this the wrong way. Totally happy to have the conversation. I'm not correcting you per se, but I'm going to give a little bit more information here. Yes, they played Warren Moon and Randall Cunningham almost the exact same period of time, the exact same years. But within that same time, Doug Williams was the quarterback for the then Washington Redskins, who also MVP. Won a Super Bowl. Yes, Super Bowl and Super Bowl MVP, the first black quarterback to ever win a Super Bowl, and obviously to ever win a Super Bowl MVP as well. And then, started rattling off some other players that overlapped, those same, and I was talking about, Jeff Blake and Tony Banks and, so many different quarterbacks that had played over that period of time.
Rodney Pete.
Yeah. Rodney Pete. Absolutely. And so then it was kind of like, that person came back and said, wow, okay, yeah, no hard feelings at all. No offense taken. Like, I appreciate the back and forth. It's a good conversation. I didn't even realize all those people. They weren't even familiar with Doug Williams. So the person they said, I'd never heard of Doug Williams, right? So this person who again, they weren't attacking us,
sure,
but they were saying that, the NFL's racist, the draft is racist and all this stuff. And in reality, they just didn't know. And so, and rather than, trying to attack them or blast them as if we had, done something wrong or said the wrong things, it's like, no, let's talk about it. Right. Okay. Well, I'll give you a little more information. You see what you think about it. And most of the time that's what we're about, right? It's like, we're not unreasonable. We're actually, in some cases, we're way too reasonable. And that's the whole thing. People sometimes watch clips, and I try to explain this to people. If they watch one of our clips on YouTube shorts can only be 60 seconds long. Most of ours are even shorter than that, oftentimes 20, 30, 40 seconds long. This episode of the show is already almost an hour and 10 minutes. How in the world could you watch a 30-second clip and then think that you understand our take on a more nuanced topic? Right? There's no way. And so I try to explain that to people. People will say, like, oh, you're dead wrong. You shouldn't. Oh, that's wrong. You're bigots. You're this, you're that. And I try to remind people, okay, but bear in mind, you're watching a 30-second clip with no context, no nuance, no idea of what else was discussed. And there's no way I can deliver more than that, right? Like, that is what it is. Like, go listen to us, go listen to the whole episode,
Right.
So, so that's the thing. It's like trying to explain this stuff to people a little bit. Is like, hey man, we can talk through it. It doesn't have to be this knee-jerk reaction of, thinking that how we feel about something, whether that's based on our appearance, whether it's based on what you saw or heard in that clip. There's a lot more going on.
Yeah. I just imagine that there has to be more sane people like us on both sides,
Yeah.
whatever side you land on. And if you were in a room together talking, that you could probably have this kind of constructive conversation. And it
Yes.
wouldn't be the you're a bigot, you're this, you're that. It's just we're such a knee jerk, quick reaction, hot take type of society
Yeah.
now, and that's it. You put all these people in a room together and you'd probably be like, oh, you like this? Yeah, wait, I like that. The closer, the more we come together, the more access we have. And we talked about this earlier, but the more we have
Yep.
access and come together, the further we seem to get apart as a country, I don't know, as a globe, I guess. It just seems to be, you have to take a side. Like, no, I don't take anyone's side. Like,
No,
if it's right,
I'm
it's
on
right.
my
If it's
side.
yeah, if it's right, it's right. If it's wrong, it's wrong.
Yeah.
And I don't think we're the only two people out there that
Can't
that
be.
feel that way. I would hope not, but if we are, great. I guess we've cornered that market.
That's right. The last of the Mohicans.
Yeah. I mean, so no, I mean, we're
Yeah.
going to give it to you both ways, both sides. I mean, I don't care what side it is. If it's wrong, it's wrong. If it's right, we're going to say it's right. And that goes for
Yeah.
Dylan. That goes for all of these people. Again, we've said Dylan. I don't blame Dylan whatsoever for taking all that
No,
money. I mean,
not at all.
Dylan's taking like Tampax tampon commercial money.
Right.
And I can understand why people are upset, but don't be upset at him. He didn't get a box of tampons and say, "Hey, I'm going to promote these without getting paid."
Right.
No, of course not.
No, someone's coming to him. Someone's coming to
Yes.
him to pay him to represent that.
And what's Dylan going to say? No, I don't want the money. I'm
Yeah.
already this deep into it. Yeah, give it all to me. I mean, whether
Yeah.
you believe in what he does or don't believe in what he does, I think that can be two sides to that, or I think you can kind of separate those two, whether or
Yeah.
not you like what he does or not. But come on, if you, the random Joe on Twitter's, Tampax come to you and said, "Hey, dude, I'll give you $150,000 right now to sponsor this," I don't know how many people are turning that down. So
That's right. Nor should they. They don't need to.
no,
I mean, because you're not wrong. You're not wrong for taking that.
no.
I mean, unless it's something that you strongly disagree with,
Sure.
right? I mean, that's a different thing, but that's up to you as an individual too.
That's exactly
No one
what it
else
is.
is positioned to tell you what you should and shouldn't do or what's right for you.
Exactly.
That's it, man. So the point is, we talk about these things because we also want people to know when you're listening to the show, like, we're not afraid to tell you what we're about, and we're not afraid to hear what you're about. Like that's the whole thing. Like, and cool, and we may not agree with it, but don't think that you're just going to lash out and say a bunch of silly stuff, and that we're not going to call you out on it, right? Because we will. That's the deal. And if you read through, believe me, you read through the comments on our YouTube clips and things like that, the vast majority of people are super complimentary, oftentimes agree with us, sometimes disagree, but in a very respectful way.
Yeah.
But every once in a while, you got somebody else who's just a joker and and wants to say some ignorant things, and that's okay, right? We welcome that as well. But then you have people, just before we get off this topic, like our buddy Dalton, right? And Dalton's a guy who, a great dude who had come in early on and like I just blasted me in one of our clips because again, he thought that he knew a little bit about, like, read into what was being said. And we had a very good back and forth conversation through the comments. And Dalton, I give this dude a ton of credit, man, because he still checks in with us. And he came back a few days later and was like, man, I listened to more of your stuff and I thought about it. Dude, I apologize. I was totally off. Like, you're right. I get it. Like, I was way off. I misjudged you and I'm sorry. And I was like, dude, you don't need to be sorry. Like, I totally get it, man. And we appreciate you checking out our stuff and, blah, blah, blah. Every once in a while, man, Dalton, and he's done it 3 or 4 times now, will go on and leave comments on our videos saying, hey, just so everyone knows, this is what these guys are about. I did this. I blasted them. They could have been jerks to me. They could have, gone after me, but they didn't. They heard me out and, and everything else. And you should subscribe. You should listen to these guys. They're really cool. And we appreciate Dalton, right? And then it was kind of like, I told him, I said, Dalton, we're going to try to make more content for you, man. So I want to know what you're into. And then he told us some things. And then we actually talked about some stories that would be more up Dalton's lane. And then sure enough, Dalton's listening and he comments and he, checks in and stuff. And he's like, dude, I can't believe it. They're actually listening to what people say that, that they want to hear about and stuff. Yeah, it was super cool. So, that's the whole thing is that, we're building a community. If you're listening to this, you're part of what we're building and we like to hear from you. We want you to be part of it. So yeah.
Good, bad, and different. Just don't expect not to get called out if you say something that's completely wrong.
That's right. That's right. And
Just
if you think we're wrong, feel free to call us out, but you got to defend your position.
That's exactly
you have to
right.
be able to defend your position with us.
Exactly
That's
right.
it. If you do that well, and believe me, I've had people on the comments and stuff say something because we respond to every single comment. And so I've had people come back with stuff and I'll tell them very fair points. Okay, I hear what you're saying. That makes sense. Now I would still say this, and this apply, but I get your point, right? It's like we can be wrong, but we can talk through that as well. So
exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah. It's revolutionary, apparently, just common sense and common courtesy. It seems to be in short supply now. So anyway, let's move on to another real story, and we'll roll it through this like normal quick hits. And last season, the Washington Commanders had a lot of issues at quarterback. I mean, they had brought in Carson Wentz, who just car wreck Carson. It wasn't good. Played Taylor Heineke, had some issues. So they reportedly called every single team in the NFL and asked if their quarterback was available. Like every team, they're calling up, hey, is Patrick Mahomes available? How can we get him? Hey, is Jalen Hurts available? Is Lamar Jackson available? What can we do? They also called retired Indianapolis Colts quarterback Andrew Luck and wanted to check in to see if he would consider coming out of retirement. Andrew Luck retired in, God, what was it, 2018 or something?
Yeah, it's been forever now.
It's been a long time. Might have even been earlier than that. But they called him to see if he wanted to come out of retirement.
August of 2019.
2019 he retired. Okay.
Yep.
So he's been out of the league for years now, and they called him to see if he wanted to come out of retirement. And already, right away, owner of the Colts, Jim Irsay, quick on the trigger, man. He jumps on Twitter and says that after this report came out, that if any team reached out to Andrew Luck, that, that would be tampering because he's still technically under contract with the Colts because, of course, he was still under contract when he retired. So your contract just freezes at that point. Who knows if anything's going to be done, but it's just one more arrow in the quiver of issues in Washington. But that level of desperation, I mean, look, to some degree, you got to appreciate what Washington, how their willingness to make those calls. I mean, we've talked before about, hey man, if you're a team and you have these problems, call everybody, make every offer, turn over every stone. And so when a team does that, then I feel like people are making fun of them a little bit for doing it. And I'm kind of like, good for you, man. You should be out there trying to do everything you can do to improve your team. So I don't have any issue with it, but I did think it was really interesting. You're turning over every single stone if you're calling Andrew Luck, who retired years ago, and asking him to be your quarterback as well.
You're right. And Andrew Luck is still only 33 years old.
It's crazy.
He still could come back and have a 10-year longer career. I mean, you could. Have you seen him though? That dude is skinny as all get out. He was a hoss when he was playing. He is so skinny now. But now here's the thing too, though. One of the reasons why they've done that since in the last 5 years, this is according to Warren Sharp at Sharp Football.
He does some great stuff.
He really does. In the last 5 years, do you want to guess the number of starting QBs Washington had
in the last 5 seasons?
5 seasons.
Well, I'm not going to leave a bunch of dead air here trying to think through it. I'm going to say 11.
Close, 12.
Wow.
The next closest is Denver with 9, Indy and Miami with 8, and then you get down the list. Green Bay, Seattle, Minnesota each had 2. Buffalo, Tampa Bay, the Chargers, KC, and the Raiders 3. Philly and Atlanta 4. Baltimore had 6. Pittsburgh had 5 in the past 5 years. They've had 12 starting QBs in the last.
That's incredible.
5 years. It is unbelievable.
And then you got to figure out, okay, how much do you blame the coaching staff for that? Or how much do you let the coaching staff off the hook? Because how could you be successful in that situation? And I don't know which one it is. I don't know which one is more.
No, that's exactly it. I don't know. But I mean, that's why you're reaching out to Andrew Luck at that point. If indeed you did reach out to him. 12 starting quarterbacks. And then there was some rumors that they were looking at Hendon Hooker, which I wish they would. I mean, someone's got to steal with him. I got to believe someone's got to steal with this kid. I don't know. I could be wrong, but I do want to bookmark it. Monday, May 8th, Jeff said someone got to steal with Hendon Hooker. I want to note it.
Yeah. We talked about it on draft night. I mean, and we talked about it last week as well. Both you and I just really felt like, man, that could be a great deal for Detroit. And Washington did say, or at least it's been reported that they would have considered Hendon Hooker had he been there when they drafted in the 3rd round.
Yeah.
And I actually saw an article today, by the way. This was not even, we didn't have this scheduled to talk about, but that the Ravens, had they not gotten Lamar signed by then, that they would have considered drafting Will Levis.
I saw that.
Yeah. So that could have been interesting.
Things would have been different if that happened.
No kidding.
Dang.
No kidding. Yeah. So anyway, we'll see how things continue to develop for Washington. But look, they've got Sam Howell. They signed Jacoby Brissett in this offseason. So they've made some moves that, I think if Sam Howell can play like he did last year, then there's every reason to believe that they could be a contending team for sure.
For sure. And Jacoby as a backup is great. I mean, he played really well for the Browns during that 9-game stretch. I think he played great. So
yeah, agreed. All right, let's move on from that. We'll do a little quick hits. I don't want to spend a lot of time with this because I'm just sick and tired of seeing or hearing about this person. But I'll go ahead and do it. The Albany Empire, which is an indoor football team that's owned by former NFL wide receiver Antonio Brown. He has 95% ownership of it. And I don't know why in the world, why you couldn't get that last 5%. I don't know. But essentially that team's completely collapsing, just like the life of Antonio Brown. And reports came out last week that players hadn't been paid since April 21st. Last Monday, the head coach Damon Ware left the team over lack of payment. Multiple players have been suspended due to an incident on the team bus. And so there was apparently aggravated harassment on the bus. Don't know too many details on that. Probably better that we not know details. The acting president of the Albany Empire, Alberoni Dennis, said that the lack of payment was due to issues with the payroll processor dating back to the former owner's tenure. Sounds to me like that's the checks in the mail type of excuse for that. This isn't about us. No. This isn't about Antonio Brown. This is about the last owner.
Yeah, his payroll, the way his checking account worked.
Yeah.
Just had it in
it's
savings.
A timing issue.
It's just timing issue. So
yeah.
But then did you see that whole thing? Like he had this thing about the players that weren't to be given key rooms or keys to rooms. It was a list, including the coach. So the coach quits, and I think they ended up hiring him back, or he ended up coming back, and again claiming that was like a misunderstanding. But one was like the MVP of like the whole entire league last year.
Right? Yeah. No, they're a good team.
Yeah, that's a very just weird.
So
man.
strange.
I don't know who doesn't see Antonio Brown and see all of his antics and everything that he gets into and be like, he'd make a good owner. I don't know. Do they not have like, a league, a commissioner? Do the other owners not vote on this stuff?
Yeah.
Like, could I just call up one of the teams and be like, hey, give you X amount of dollars? And they're like, cool. I've been trying to get rid of this thing forever.
Exactly.
I don't know, man. This is this is wild. Now I did see. I didn't again. I'll always have love for Antonio Brown. I mean, what he did with Pittsburgh and my beliefs that had that Vontaze perfect hit not happened, this is probably not the outcome. To me, Antonio Brown was on his way to being, I'll say, the second best receiver ever in the NFL. I think he had that kind of skill and that kind of work and dedication. And I swear, man, if you go back and just time it, I swear after that hit, it just went all downhill from there. So
you got that CTE.
So in some ways, you kind of feel bad for him, but then, people just keep buying into his stuff. And I don't know. I don't know why you would ever give this man keys to a team. But I suppose I saw something and I was just scrolling through quick and it looked like he was like at a desk. Like it looked like he may have been signing checks or something. I don't know. Of course, I'm sure they don't give him paper checks.
Right.
But...
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. They don't have direct deposit.
Right. So I was like,
he's like, I'm going to write this to you, but don't try to deposit this until next Wednesday.
I don't know if I told you the way my savings and my checking account are.
I got to move funds around.
I don't know. It was like back to business, All right. I feel bad for him. I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't, but I do. Soft spot. He's got a soft spot on me.
You have a good heart. You have a good heart.
Well, I guess so.
He seems like a human monster who's completely terrorizing the countryside, but you've got a soft spot for him. So
yeah.
All right, let's move on. Quick hits. Talking about the NFL. Carolina Panthers signed former Eagles running back Miles Sanders to a 4-year, $25 million contract in free agency. He got $13 million guaranteed. The Eagles' replacements of DeAndre Swift and Rashad Penny will combine to make less than $3 million this year. So Philly is paying $10 million less for DeAndre Swift and Rashad Penny than they would have if they had re-signed Miles Sanders. That is a pretty darn good deal. Because I don't think there's a big drop-off from DeAndre Swift and Rashad Penny to Miles Sanders. At least not $10 million worth.
See, I'm going to disagree with you because Rashad Penny, although very, very, very productive when healthy, is never healthy. He's 27 years old. He's played 42 games in 5 years. He played 3 games in 2020. 10 games in 2021, and then 5 games last year. So he's never around.
Yeah.
And then DeAndre Swift is 24 years old. He's missed time every single year. So he's missed minimally 3. Actually, I think he's missed 3 games every single year.
Okay. So
never available. Meanwhile, Miles Sanders is 26 years. Now Swift's 24. And to me, all the talent in the world, I don't know what it is, if it's just never been unlocked. I really think with Staley there and Detroit last year, I thought we were going to see just a different beast. But then we had Williams?
Yes. Is it Jameson Williams?
I wanted to say Jameson Williams, but I don't know why that didn't sound right. But which I think he is now with the Saints,
I believe.
Yeah. I mean, so he was getting all the touchdowns. He was getting all the goal line, getting all the carries, at least at the goal line. But Miles Sanders is 26 years old, 57 games over 4 years. And then he played all 17 games last year, had almost 1,300 yards and had 11 touchdowns. So, yes, in theory, if Rashad Penny is heavy, if Rashad Penny is healthy, it could be a steal, but the problem is this dude in 5 years has played 42 games, and the past 3 years he's played a total of 18 games in 3 years. So he's never available. So while it could be great, that's a huge factor now that I think is gone with the Eagles. So that could even put more pressure on old Jalen Hurts, I think. But we'll see. True. I mean, I don't know. According to everybody, Howie Roseman is the genius of all geniuses. So maybe he knows. He can see the future. And Rashad Penny's going to play 16 games, 14 games, and is going to rush for 1,500 yards. And DeAndre Swift's going to come in and take the top off everybody. And, it's going to be like nothing ever happened. So
it'll be interesting. It was Jamal Williams, by the way. Jamal Williams. Yeah, not Jameson.
You know what?
Williams.
Isn't Jameson the guy that got suspended?
I think it might be. He was wide receiver.
Wide receiver. Yeah. I know Jameson didn't sound right, but Jamal.
Yeah. No, I think it's interesting, right? The DeAndre Swift and Rashad Penny, I mean, it's boom or bust, but they're saving $10 million.
It's a lot, I mean, it's a lot. If it works out, pretty it's good. Great, but I'm not sure I would ever, for a Super Bowl contending team, that's going to
be the big thing.
Yeah, to lose a player like Miles Sanders, who's available all the time.
Yeah.
Two guys that miss time all the time. That's, maybe you're hoping you can just kind of piggyback and just split the carries with them and keep them healthy.
And maybe, who knows what their plans are in the pass game and stuff like that to potentially be able to use these guys, And
I thought Miles had a bigger role in the pass game, but he really doesn't. He does not catch passes much out of the backfield. So, that could be a big factor. Like I said, when Rashad Penny's healthy, he could probably be a top 8 running back in the league. I mean, he is very, very productive. He just never stays healthy. So we'll see.
Yeah. All right, moving on. Quick hits. We talked about this in the rundown at the beginning of the show. Air travel's a huge thing. It's not fun to do most of the time. It's not fun. Airports are terrible. Airplanes are pretty terrible, but they get you where you need to go. It's when they don't get you where you need to go that you have a bigger problem. And so, unfortunately, we're talking about the horrible idea of a plane crash, right? And so you think like, oh God, if a plane crashes, you got a 0 survival rate. But there are lots of plane crashes that aren't just like it fell out of the sky. I mean, they crash in so many different ways. It could be landing and there's a crash, or, there's any number of different things. But there are differences. Studies have been done on the survival rates based on where you are sitting in the aircraft. So what's the likelihood of survival in different seats in the aircraft? And so it was pretty interesting to see. It doesn't go in the order that you might think it does as it pertains to who paid the most money. There's a 49% survival rate in first class or business class. Now, again, keep in mind, that's still pretty darn good. If you told me in a plane crash, you got a 50-50 chance of surviving, that's not too bad, right? 49% in first class or business class. 56% survival rate if you're ahead of the wing or over the wing. So if you're in front of the plane, in front of the wings, 56%, or if you are over top of the wings, you have those wing seats, you're also 56%. So it's a pretty big jump from 49% in the very front in first and business class to 56% in kind of what you would consider the middle of the plane. That number jumps up to 69% if you're sitting in the rear cabin. So the place to be, if you're sitting on a plane, is in the back for the safest spot. And it is significantly improved from 49% in the front to 69% in the back. So you have a 20% higher survival rate if you're sitting in the back of the plane.
I think it makes sense because planes don't usually crash tail down. It's usually nose diving, right? So I think it makes the most sense. I think I'd probably just rather die at this point because there's no chance I'm going to just sit in the back, wait for every single person to get off of that flight. I think I'd rather just die.
Well, here's the thing that really bothers me. We'll talk about this. I've had to do this a few times in travel, where you go to where you have to sit in the very, very last seat, the very last row in the entire plane. Those seats don't go backwards. They don't recline at all. So it's like, now I'm not a big person of reclining my seat. Some people just, the moment they sit down, they just want to lay down and the seat as far as they can. That's not my thing. I don't really do a lot of that, but I don't mind maybe moving it back a little bit. The seats in the last row, you were sitting straight up. It's like
unnatural position.
Yeah, it makes no sense. Right. It's like, why couldn't you couldn't have designed this to move it up 4 inches further to be, there's no way that could have worked. It makes no sense to me. And they're the same price. Yeah, so why am I paying the same price for these seats? Like, those seats should be like $20 cheaper.
Well, I guess you're saving yourself, survival. That's what it is. You're paying for survival at that point.
That's right.
So.
Well, yeah, because I'm basically strapping myself to the stiff board here, this wall up against me. So yeah, there's less movement for me.
It's funny. Have you ever heard of like people who have like kids and stuff that they will take separate flights just for that reason of a chance of like a plane crash? So like one survives. I've heard of that.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know if people out there, I'd love to hear from our audience. If you're married, do you travel together or do you travel separate for that very reason? I mean, when I travel with my wife, we're going on the same flight. Because I'm not waiting at that airport any longer. My kids can figure it out on their own.
No. My wife's not going to be on a plane without me. Like, she would not be interested in, hey, honey, you go ahead, and then 3 hours later, my plane will get there, and then we'll be safe that way.
Be safer that way. But I don't know people personally, but I've heard it was brought up on like a radio show at one point. I was listening, and people were calling in and be like, yeah, my wife and I take separate flights for that specific reason.
I mean, it makes sense. Like, I get it. It's just...
Yeah, but do you travel cars separately too? Where do you draw the line? So
it's way more dangerous in a car than in an airplane.
And then when you're traveling as a family, do you which kid do you take with you?
Your mommy's favorite. You go over here.
Yeah, depending on who's the best driver. Well, take this one because they're probably going to turn into something more than this one. So you're not
Daddy's frequently
driver.
Drunk, but your grades are bad, so you go with him.
Yeah, I would love to see that. But yeah, no, it makes sense because I mean most planes are going to crash nose down. So I guess it would make. I mean, I don't know how you'd survive at all. I don't know.
Yeah.
How fast are you falling out of the sky? I mean, Well,
apparently in 2012, a group of Mexican scientists intentionally crashed a Boeing 727 to test which seats had the best chance of survival. And so that's how they figured out that's 49% in first and business class, front of the plane, 56% if you're in front of the wings or over the wings, and then 69% in the rear cabin. I don't know how many more studies have been done though. So, I mean, that could have just been that one time crashing one plane and that's it. And they're going off of that. So, don't feel like you have to take back seats on our account just to be safe. 'Cause we can't promise survival.
They were not interested in that. They just wanted to crash a Boeing 727.
Yeah, exactly. Who wouldn't?
We got this
I want to do a study too. Why don't we go get a plane?
Right. Crash out in the middle of the desert. Awesome.
All right, let's move on. Quick hits. Here's an interesting basketball stat for you NBA fans. NBA playoffs are going on right now. A lot of really good games being played. LeBron James and the Lakers still very much in the mix, playing against the Warriors. LeBron James has a double-digit scoring streak, right? Scoring 10 or more points in a game. He has a double-digit scoring streak of 1,151 games. Michael Jordan's total number of games played in his career is 1,072 games. So LeBron James has 80 more double-digit scoring games than Michael Jordan has total career games. I saw that stat and thought that was crazy. This does not mean, for the people out there, let me be clear, this does not mean that LeBron James is a better player than Michael Jordan. But it does prove, or at least starts to prove, one of the things that we talked about, and actually we mentioned in a previous episode, we said we'd get back to it. We're not going to get back to it tonight, but it will be something to get back to. That LeBron is very much of that Brady school of playing a very long time. And we talked about Tom Brady, LeBron James, Emmitt Smith, players that played an incredibly long time and therefore are thought of as all-time greats. And they are great players. But statistically, it took them that long to break those records, right? Tom Brady has so many records, but really Peyton Manning was always statistically the better quarterback by far. Yep. It was just the fact that Brady's played for so long. And you looked at Marino's records and Montana's records, prior to that stuff. And then it was Peyton Manning and Drew Brees breaking all these records. Well, of course, over time, Tom Brady's going to do it because he played 5, 6, 8, 10 years more than other quarterbacks. So naturally, you're going to do it. Same with Emmitt Smith. In their prime, most people would want to have Barry Sanders over Emmitt Smith in their prime. But Emmitt Smith played a lot longer. Barry Sanders had a 10-year career. So naturally, Emmitt Smith registered a lot more yards. And then you get the same thing with this, LeBron James. I mean, he's played. I mean, that tells you just his double-digit games alone are so many more. It's a full season more. LeBron's double-digit games alone are a full season more than Jordan's total games played.
This is exactly. Jordan played 15 years. LeBron is on 20. LeBron came in when he was 18 years old. Jordan was 22.
Yeah, I think 22.
23.
Something like that. 21 or 22, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you want to... someone brought this up, and I was like, man, this is such a great point. Like, if there's ever a doubt who the GOAT is, nobody says compared to LeBron James. Everybody always says compared to Michael Jordan.
Yeah, he's the benchmark.
If you are comparing yourself to someone else, that person is clearly the GOAT. I'm sorry. Yeah. And I can get into a lot of stuff, and we'll have to do it sometime. But I mean, yes, LeBron's first in total points, but points per game, he's fifth. Who's first? Michael Jordan. Playoff points per game, he's sixth. Michael's first. I can just go down the line. Scoring titles, he's sixth in scoring titles. Jordan's first in scoring titles. Final MVPs, LeBron's second. Jordan's first. I mean,
it's longevity, right? I mean, LeBron's thing is longevity. I mean, he's a great player, right? No. So, I mean, again, this is not a conversation to be had to take anything away from LeBron. LeBron's an incredible player.
Maybe
and what he's done through his longevity.
Yeah. I mean, greatest player of all time.
Yeah. And his longevity, much like Brady's, is in and of itself something to be celebrated. Because we talked about it before. Jordan, at the age that LeBron is now, was nowhere close to the player that LeBron is now.
No.
Not even close.
No, goodness. The stuff LeBron's doing now is
it's crazy.
Crazy for a guy's age. That is 100% sure. And for sure. And he still wants to stick around long enough to try and play with his son, which I wouldn't put
it's getting closer, right? I mean, Bronny just declared, he's going to USC now. LeBron James' son, Bronny James, is going to USC. And man, talk about a program on the rise. Daggone USC across the board. Bronny James, they got Caleb Williams at quarterback for the football team, who's, projected to be the top player to come out next year. So USC sports right now, man, they're a program on the come up for sure.
They're on the up for sure.
Yeah. So, anyway, I thought that those stats were interesting there between LeBron and Jordan, just on the longevity of those double-digit scoring games is pretty crazy.
That is, actually.
And then we'll go quickets. And then we have the Kentucky Derby this weekend. A horse named Mage wins the 149th Kentucky Derby. Mage was I had it here. What were they? Was it a 15 to 1?
15 to 1. Yep.
15 to 1. Yeah. So, that means that a $2 bet would give you back $32.42. So hopefully a lot of you out there put more than $2 on Mage, so you could have made some real money. And then when you start to get into somewhere like the trifectas and things like that you could have pulled off. I mean, there was some really good money to be made in the Kentucky Derby. When you get into, again, some of these things, I mean, they're not the easiest things to pick off, the right order of the first 4 horses and stuff like that. But that's when you get into that, $5 bet that wins you $4,000 and stuff like that.
Right.
So,
right. Didn't I didn't follow it too much, but didn't the favorite have to pull out for some reason?
Yeah, I believe I'm trying to find the article that I had before because I was going back over a few different things of it. Yeah, so Mage won. It beat a horse named Two Fills and won by a length. But yeah, they were 15 to 1, and yeah, I'm not seeing. Yeah, apparently in Saturday's second race. Well, okay. So there's a few different things. Apparently, 7 horses died in recent days at Churchill Downs.
Oh,
so
that's a whole other thing right there, man.
Yeah, really is. So there was a lot going on there, and including Derby hopeful horse named Wild on Ice. So there was certainly a kind of a cloud over things on Saturday at Churchill Downs. 7 horses died there in the past week. And that should never happen. I mean, bottom line, that's not okay.
That's so
in Saturday's second race, 3-year-old horse Chloe's Dream suffered a right knee injury and was euthanized. In race 8, Freezing Point suffered a left ankle injury and was put down. And then the deaths led to the indefinite suspension of trainer Saffie Joseph Jr. in what Churchill Downs called the, quote, highly unusual sudden deaths of his 2 horses. And Joseph trained Lord Miles had been scheduled to run in the Derby, but was scratched because of the suspension.
Wow.
Yeah. But yes, the morning line favorite was Forte. And hours before the race, morning line favorite Forte was scratched because of a bruised right foot. Forte was the 5th horse forced to withdraw late from the race. It was the first time since 1936 that there had been this many Derby scratches. And back then, 5 entrants had pulled out just before the race.
That's crazy. Yeah, I thought I remember I couldn't remember the horse's name when you said it, Forte. That made sense. But
yeah,
I thought there was one that had to pull out that was the favorite. So yeah, this is one I would love to get into at some point. Is any of this even necessary? Horse racing? It just doesn't seem to make any sense. I mean, there's so much money, and not even as much money in the race itself as it is selling, the goods from the horses that wins. Like their seeds can go for hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. So
yeah, those stud fees are pretty high. And and that's the thing that kills me is that this idea that the horse gets injured and then so that means they have to be put down.
Yeah,
I just don't understand why that needs to happen. Whatever. I mean, I'm not. Yeah, I don't know. It's a much bigger topic than what we would have the time to get into. But there's definitely some things that need to be looked at. I mean, you can't have 7 horses in a week die at Churchill Downs and not think something needs to be changed.
Right.
Something right.
That's exactly it.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's interesting. Anyway, that's about everything I had. So that'll wrap up quick hits. And then how about you? Did you have anything that we didn't already touch on? Was there anything left?
I think we're good. I did have something I saw on Pro Football Focus. There are 12 teams, which is essentially, 37% of the NFL who have never won a Super Bowl. And the question was, which one would be the first one to win it? So I guess we could do that real quick. We won't spend a ton of
Okay.
time on it, but the teams are the Minnesota Vikings, Tennessee Titans, Buffalo Bills, almost said San Diego, the Chargers. We're just going to call them the Chargers.
Yeah.
The Bengals, the Browns, the Falcons, the Lions, the Panthers, the Jaguars, the Cardinals, and the Texans. Never won a Super Bowl.
That's such a long list. That's so crazy to
I
think
said that. I mean, it's
many
literally
people.
almost 40% of the NFL who have not won the Super Bowl.
Wow, that's unbelievable. 40% of the NFL. I mean, I know it's not quite that number, but
quite,
almost 30-some% of the NFL has never won a Super Bowl. Yeah. Now we're not talking about having so they may have been to a Super Bowl and lost.
Sure.
So okay, so it's not that they haven't been there, just that they haven't won it.
We know the 28-3 Falcons were there at one point. So yeah, they're definitely. I mean, just recently the Bengals. So I mean, there's yeah. So I don't know. I would guess the Bills maybe would be the team I would probably go with, but I wouldn't count out the Bengals.
It's tough. I don't know why I feel this way. So I'm leaving the door open to be completely wrong on this. But do you feel like the Buffalo Bills door or window is closing 100%. On winning a Super Bowl? It doesn't feel like they're ascending. It feels like they're kind of starting to drift down. And I don't know why I feel that way exactly, because they're still a very talented team, and they only got better now with this draft. They pulled Dalton Kincaid, the best tight end in the draft, and there's just a lot of things that are good. But for some reason, I just feel like the Buffalo Bills are on a downturn.
Well, I think you just look at the team as constructed and you wonder, okay, they haven't gotten past this point. Josh Allen's contract's kicking in. It's costing them way more. You're going to be able to keep less and less. You just lost Tremaine Edmonds.
Yeah. So
you lost a lot. Like, you didn't get a whole lot better this year in this offseason. I don't think anyways. But
yeah.
So, yeah, I completely agree. You just wonder if that team has peaked, if that's it. Man, they had their chance, and that's it, man. Once these quarterback contracts kick in, unless your name is Patrick Mahomes, it does not, like, it's so tough to win. And that's why, like, Bengals, I was like, maybe Bengals. I could see Bengals, but I feel like they've got a 1 or 2 year window as well until they're going to have to stop. They're not going to be able to play some players that they want to pay. When you got that many wide receivers you got to pay, and you got your quarterback to pay. Yeah, that's tough. So,
yeah, that's an interesting one. I mean, Bengals and Bills are obviously the standouts on that list. But there are some teams that could surprise people. Houston being one of them. Those Houston Texans, man, you don't know what might end up happening now. If CJ Stroud can turn out to be the real deal. If he's the big thing that they've been missing, I mean, they obviously we have yet to see DeMeco Ryans as a head coach. So there's a lot of unknowns, but that's a team on the upswing for sure.
Yeah. Jaguars. I mean, I feel like they've got a year or two to really sneak in there. If they're in the right
division.
Yeah. If they're really as good as we think they are, or people say they are, I guess, they're in the right division. That could be some home field advantage, and a few things go their way, so they could be right back in it. That'll be an interesting pool maybe to put up. Which one has the best chance?
Yeah,
I think a lot of windows are closing, though. I really do.
Feels that way.
Yeah, so we'll see.
And one window that doesn't seem to be closing is the Kansas City Chiefs.
I just don't understand, man.
That's a team that nobody wants to play no matter what. They're just there, man. They're just continuing to do it.
Yeah.
Crazy. All right. Well, before we wrap it up, we usually like to end on some sort of little bit of trivia or a little story, something like that. And I have one that I just, I read this recently and I thought it was worth giving a shout out to this person. This gentleman's no longer with us. He passed away in 2012, but I'm going to tell you a very short story here of a gentleman named Don Ritchie. Don Ritchie was an Australian man, and he lived in an area in Australia near a section called the Gap. And the Gap is kind of like a large natural like ravine that had a big bridge over it. And over the years, the Gap actually became a place that was unfortunately very prevalent with suicide. There were a lot of people that would go there to commit suicide by jumping off the bridge. Don Ritchie had a view of that bridge from his house. And he would, when he saw someone there on the bridge thinking about jumping, he would go over and talk to the people and literally invite them back to his house to talk and have a drink and just hang out. Don Ritchie officially rescued at least 180 people who had intended to commit suicide at the Gap. 180 people. Wow. That's official. Now, he lived there for 45 years. This was in 2009. He died in 2012. Officially, he rescued 180 people as of 2009 over a 45-year period. His family, though, claims that the real number is closer to 500 people. And it's a location that Gap is a location in Sydney, Australia. And so that's where it is. So he would see someone on the cliff in distress. He would cross the road from his property and engage them in conversation. And he would often begin with the words, "Can I help you in some way?" And then afterwards, he'd invite them back to his home for a cup of tea and a chat. Some of the people that he helped would return years later to thank him for his efforts in talking them out of their decision. And he explained his intervention in suicide attempts, saying, you can't just sit there and watch them. In 2006, Don Ritchie was awarded the Medal of the Order of Australia for his rescues, which is the official citation being for service to the community through programs to prevent suicide. Ritchie and his wife Moya were also named Citizens of the Year for 2010 by the Woolwara Council, the local government authority responsible for the Gap. He received a Local Hero Award for Australia in 2011. The National Australia Day Council saying his kind words and invitations into his home in times of trouble have made an enormous difference. With such simple actions, Don has saved an extraordinary number of lives. He died in 2012 at the age of 85 years old. So whether it was 180 people that he saved or 500 people that he saved, it is unbelievable to think that one person could have impacted and influenced that many people. So you never know what people are going through, right? You never know how people, are dealing with things in their lives. And a lot of us, we pass people every day and, any number of things could be happening for any number of people. And then you have somebody like a Don Ritchie who could have just stayed in his house, could have just turned a blind eye to it and said, I'm not going to get involved, not my problem. But he would walk over there and he'd make conversation with people and he saved an awful lot of people. So I thought, even though he's no longer with us, it's worth mentioning Mr. Don Ritchie.
Here, Mr. Ritchie. Very good story. What a nice way to end off.
Yeah. A little something, a little feel good. We talked about, horses dying and all kinds of craziness. I thought it'd be a nice way to end things on a high note with a story about a great person.
Cleanse the palate, if you will.
That's right. And with that being the case, I think we can go ahead and wrap this puppy up. We have given the world, our global audience, 2 hours of entertainment. And we're confident that there's going to be more. We're getting better all the time. We're happy to have all of you with us as we continue to grow and develop. We've got a lot of really good and exciting things continuing to come, and we're going to keep doing our best to keep you entertained. So with that, my friend, I think we've done our job. Our community service has ended for this week at least. For this week. And
ankle monitor still stays on, but
stays on. It stays. On. Yeah. Yeah, we're not done. We're just done for now.
For now. Till next week.
That's it. All right. Well, my friend, it was a pleasure as always.
Sir. As always.
Great time. Great topics. Great show. Thank you for listening, everybody. We'll be back soon.
See y'all.